Hey everyone, welcome to my conversation today with JJ from Life Change by JJ. And we're going to be talking today about how to create space in our lives. We all live really, really busy lives. And hey JJ, I'm just waiting on her. She's going to join me in just a moment. And then we are going to jump in. She is coming on in. And until then, say hi in the comments if you're here. And oh, perfect. Here she is coming on.
Hey,
Hey, Jay.
sweet.
Perfect. You're there. Okay, awesome. Let me just changing your filters, huh?
You can apparently.
No. I know. We're both getting kind of used to Instagram Live and trying to figure out how it works. And you're looking bronze there in Cape Town winter.
Yeah, it's summer today. It feels like it. It's 24.
Really? Well, it definitely feels like summer here because it's 105. And yesterday the heat index was like 112 or something crazy.
No, that's next level.
Yes, it is. The next level that I don't want to be at, actually.
I know you guys are suffering.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. But you know, we have air conditioning except for ours is out right now, so that's in the process of getting fixed. So, but I'm here in this lovely cool home, so that's okay.
Good.
Awesome. Well, should we just jump in? You know, like last week when we talked, we said we were going to try to keep it a little bit shorter this time, just because we know people have busy lives, and but we want to have a conversation about some things that are really important to us as we do these lives, and we think will benefit other people. So shall we just go for it and jump in? Oh no, is your connection slow? JJ, are you there? Okay, well, I don't know. Her connection might be kind of slow. South African load shedding is a little bit of an issue at times. But let's give her a moment and see if she can jump back in. Let's see if she's trying to come back in again. Let's see. Okay. JJ, are you still there? Hello? All right. Well, let's just go and we'll hopefully have JJ come back in because the whole point of this is to have a conversation. It looks like her internet is being a bit tricky there in load shedding South Africa, but I'll go ahead and start and say that I am a spiritual director. For those of you who don't know me, I run an organization called The Hope Adventure. It's all about helping people create space to connect with God, and specifically believing that they will then discover God as their greatest adventure. And that is part of what I do with my time. What that looks like is I help people name things that they don't know that they need to name. And I do that often by asking questions and listening. Hey, you're back. I was hoping that your internet was not going to fail us today. So I just kind of jumped in and started giving an introduction of like who I am and what I do and all of that. So I was just talking about my spiritual direction work, and part of that now is incorporating sort of opportunities for travel globally, changing your pace and your place to get a new perspective, and that's all part of creating space. So it rhymes. Didn't even try to make that happen. So anyway, I just kind of gave, while you were off, I don't know if you could hear because you were rebooting, just again talking about a little bit about what I do and why sort of we're talking about creating space today. So
No, it's good, and I'm excited because we have. You use the terminology creating space, and I think I've cottoned on to that so much because I'm with Life Change, Live Your Life by Design, where it's really trying to purposefully create the life that you want to live, the life that you love. How do you pursue your passions? And then the basics to becoming financially free to get there. But to do that, you have to learn how to create space.
yes.
So our subheading to us going live like this and having the conversations is living intentionally unintentional. And that requires creating space. So this, I think it's such a cool title to talk about. And as we break it down, learning what does creating space actually mean? So when you say creating space, what does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's for me when I talk about it, it's leaving that sort of wide open space in your life, in your lifestyle that may specifically look like your calendar. Um, you know, I think about it, we've talked a lot about margin, creating margin in our life. So margin is the little side of the paper that is extra. Something really popular right now is journal Bibles. And the way a journal Bible is created is that you have like your Bible page and then half of the page is empty space. It's margin. It's for you to take notes and kind of put your own thoughts.
I do my margin in, we have matching calendars.
We do have matching
every month I use, okay, that's a bad example.
That's hilarious.
It's like the margin of my calendar.
Oh my gosh. I legit do the same thing, and mine is like literally all just out of reach, like right across this table. So yeah, I think about, when I was overseas as a missionary and I had come home, I went through some counseling just for cross-cultural transition, which as a missionary is one of the hardest things to do, is to come back into your home culture, or a missionary or not, like that's a challenge. Mm-hmm. And so I remember I was talking to her just about some things going on in my life, and she sort of asked me a question, and she said, where is the evaluation space in your life? Like if you're living life at this pace, or you're spending so much time with this person, where is the actual moment to step back and evaluate and create the space to evaluate how you actually feel and pay attention to your soul and to your heart? And when we are so busy and so productive and just go, we don't actually stop to listen to what's actually going on inside of us. So that's what I mean by creating space. The other thing is that as an artist, like a visual painting artist, I am someone who, I love a blank canvas. I love it. It may be overwhelming to me at times, but I also love a blank canvas. And the idea of going to a canvas that's totally empty and sort of co-creating with God, or just showing up and expressing, is really, this idea of space and this idea of margin as well. So that's what I mean when I talk about creating space. Those are two kind of metaphors really, but.
So say margin again, like how does that, you talk about the lined paper and the margins, what's on the edge of the paper. What do you do with that margin? Why do we have it? Why do we need it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of like, that's a good question, because you and I have talked about margin quite a bit. It's this idea that we prioritize and value what's important. There is room for that. We do have things we're responsible for and that take priority. But the margin idea is kind of creating the room for the unknown or the unexpected. We can't ever know anything that's going to happen in our day, especially as believers when we're walking in step with the Spirit of God, who is all mysterious and all knowing. Really, life is an adventure with God in that way. And so like leaving that open space. You and I have talked about this a lot. So you mentioned earlier that as we do these lives, like whatever we're talking about, we're always talking with the lens of living intentionally unintentional. And what we mean by that is living a life where you are very intentional about what you're doing, and you're also intentional about leaving spaces wide open for whatever to happen. So I think, maybe a quick story, if you want to share one of the stories of one of our days in Cape Town, like in the spring when we were there together. I'm thinking specifically about the day that we went into one of the township communities, just to give an example of like what that actually looks like.
So Bethany and I arrived in South Africa pretty much like hours apart, I think. We both flew from America, arrived in South Africa same day, but hours apart. Yeah. And now it just happens to be that we're both in South Africa at the same time. We don't know, we have ideas of what we want to do here, but so we join forces and we spend a couple of days together, we get accommodation together, and then it's just like, okay, well, why are you here? And why am I here? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm here to just kind of figure it out. And so because we had kind of space in our days and someone to kind of share some of that, like neither of us know where we're going, but we can do this together. So one day we end up staying down in Musenberg at this YWAM house, which is like pretty rough and ready. It was super cheap, but we're on these really uncomfortable bunk beds, just suffering through it, trying to be like little backpackers, trying to save every penny we could. And the guy that's kind of hosting the house, his name's Zola, we started talking to him, and next thing he's like, oh, I actually come from Khayelitsha. And we're like, you know what? Can we just go to Khayelitsha, and we want to like create a little bit of a YouTube documentary there as we walk through the town and stuff. So already just this random place we end up staying, this random guy we end up talking to, now we end up in Khayelitsha, which for people that don't know is one of the biggest townships in Southern Africa. And it's almost like a city of itself. And when I talk township, I'm talking about like there's gangsterism in there. They living in shacks still. It's a place where most people that aren't from Khayelitsha or don't know it don't go there. But yeah, us two white girls are like, take us to Khayelitsha. We want to go walk through and meet the people. And so we did. And then on top of like talking about just making, like, we don't know, we just want to go. We don't know why or what, just take us there. And this is us creating space, or we're intentionally being unintentional. Like we want to go, but we have no pre-agenda. Yeah. Now we end up there, while we're there, we end up, this guy Zola that we're with, he's like, actually my cousins live here. We're like, take us to your cousin's house. Or where Zola used to live. So we go there and we're sitting inside his house, and then his cousins like pop their head in and then they disappear. And then we're like, where did your cousins just go? And he's like, yeah, they're around the back, smoking weed and whatever. So in their little like other shack. And he's like, but they probably, they don't want to like expose you guys to that. We're like, take us to their shack. Like, let's go back there. Like, not that we want to go smoke weed. We just want to go like, where are the people? We're here to find something. Yeah. We've created this space here to find something. And so long story short, or not so short, we end up sitting in the back there with the guys and having this phenomenal conversation and hearing their story and how they've been in prison and what's just these young guys who have skills and talents and just what their life story is. And we're able to just kind of not speak into it, because it's not that we had anything to offer, but we got to learn from them and they got to learn from us. And so out of this no agenda space that we just created and just took some steps towards something, it really became such a life-changing moment and a really cool story that we have it recorded. We'll release it one day of just kind of what happened, but it was cool.
Well, it's amazing because I love what you said about no agenda. So we live our lives with so much agenda, in the sense of a lot of us are goal setters. We have goals that we want to attain. We are purpose-driven people. We have all these things that we want to do and be. And so sometimes creating space is actually just about stepping back, taking a deep breath, and living in the moment with no agenda. And that is what the whole intentionality kind of thing is. So yeah.
So you say something pretty cool, we've talked about it, is being addicted to productivity and why that's dangerous.
Yeah. So the thing about creating space, why it's important, is a couple things. First of all, we are addicted to productivity. We're addicted to the rat race, especially in Western culture. We are all about the adrenaline. So what actually happens, there's an adrenaline rush that happens when we are addicted to productivity. And scientists actually say that your brain can be addicted to productivity like it can be addicted to other things. And the problem is that over time, that works against you. So you never have enough. Like, you're never productive enough. You're always looking for the next hit of productivity. And the thing about the withdrawal symptoms of addiction, and especially even, and again, there's studies on this, about productivity, is that it increases your anxiety and your stress, and it can cause depression and fear. So just like other addictions, our addiction to productivity can do all those things. And the other thing is that we evaluate like people's status level. Like how often, in fact, you and I were just organically talking about this yesterday. How often is it that we value busyness as a status symbol? We were having a conversation about a mutual friend of ours yesterday. And just share what you said. You know, I mean, obviously don't name the person, but share share what you said to the person, because I was really struck by what you said. So will you say that, because it goes into the whole productivity thing?
Gosh, I have to remember how I said it, because when I was talking to you, it's just coming up. But this person is just always busy, and I know it because I've fallen into it too. And I was like, I'm just frustrated at you being busy all the time. And they're like, I know, me too. I don't know how to say no, and we'll talk about that too. But they're like, it's just I'm busy doing this, and I'm needed here, and I'm busy. I'm needed here, and I'm just needed in so many areas that like I don't know what I can turn down and what I can let go of.
Yeah.
I was like, I think this is what you're referring to, but I said, if there is a if what you're doing, if there's a need and you are serving the need, a need that will always be there, or you feel needed because you're serving a need, but that need will always be there, then how needed are you really? So even in our jobs, so maybe you're not helping the homeless or feeding the hungry or doing something that you feel importance and value in and feel like you're needed in that area. Maybe you're just working your job and you're like, I can't drop the ball on my job because how they're going to carry on. Well, coming out of working 10 years with one company where I blood, sweat, and tears and drank the Kool-Aid of this company, the moment I walked out of it, and it's true time and time again, is that the moment you walk out, you're replaceable. So you might feel like your busyness or your responsibility to respond to that need or to be present or to stay busy or productive is needed. But the truth is, when you're not there, how much of it is really your value?
Yeah.
I didn't
No, it
say
does. And you know, and yeah, and that's exactly what I was thinking about what you were saying. And you even went so as far to say to this person, like, your busyness is unattractive. I don't know if those are the words you use, but you use kind of, and you weren't, I mean, again, you know this person well, but I just was like, that is so countercultural to what we talk about when we talk about busyness, because we've elevated it as a status level, but actually, why do we all want to run on the hamster wheel and kill ourselves trying to work ourselves to death? You know, my cousin this morning posted something on Facebook. She had read a book that was a study of people at the end of their lives. It like sort of went through and asked all these people sort of on their deathbed, like, what are the things that you wish you did differently in life? And there was 10 things that they had collected, and I don't remember all 10. But the gist of what all of them were about is like, live life to your fullest and don't be apologetic for what you're passionate about, and don't overwork. Don't be a workaholic and do the things that ultimately at the end of the day aren't going to matter like on your deathbed. So that's a little bit morbid, but it plays into what we're talking about. And I think part of our issue is that we don't know how to stop. It's really hard to stop. And in stopping, we realize a couple things. We realize sometimes we're our own worst enemy. I mean, you and I were even talking about this yesterday. I think it was with you. Might have been my other friend, Callie. But just this idea of like, when we stop, like I can kind of create space in my life. And sometimes I fill the space by default with things that I don't want to fill it with. Yeah. And it's because I'm addicted to productivity, just like we all are. But, you know, there are several different types of rest that we need. There's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, sensory rest. Sensory rest is shutting off all your social media. It's shutting off your screens. It's shutting off all the stuff that's like constantly coming at you. I don't know the statistics on this, but I've heard just ridiculous numbers of how much information we're exposed to daily. Like in the first hour, and you wake and you get on your phone or your computer, like all the information that's coming at you. You know, I read a book in my training as a spiritual director that he talked about we have to look at the things in our lives and ask, what are they doing to us? So let's say you're a person who wakes up every morning and the first thing that you do is scroll on Facebook. Now, I have a terrible habit of doing this, one that I continually try to break, which means I'm probably addicted to it. But what it's doing is actually dictating what's going into your mind. So when you open Facebook as example and you're scrolling through, you are sort of submitting your thoughts to whatever you're seeing on the screen, which are other people's thoughts and other people's experiences and other people's days. Now, a lot of us look at social media because it's social. We want to see what's going on in people's lives. But over time, what we don't realize is happening is we're actually giving like sort of a power over to someone or something else to actually be controlling what's going on in our mind. And that's why so many people struggle with social media. It's a comparison culture. There's anxiety, depression. There's studies done, especially like with young children who aren't fully formed in their brain. This is a whole like side note situation, not totally what we're talking about today, but sensory rest is important. And then the last one is social rest. You know, I'm an extreme extrovert, but there are times when I need to pull away. And the older I get, the more often that becomes. And as a single person, I really love my alone time. So anyway, those are some of the reasons why we need to create space.
And I think too, is learning to be still. So from my whole point of view of everything that I teach is that we are human beings, not human doings.
Yeah.
Yet our identity is found in what we do. So everybody is attached to what you do. The first thing they ask you when you meet someone is, hey, so what do you do? Mm-hmm. And actually I was talking to another friend, Phineas, the other day, and he said he does prison ministry as well. As well as other things, but he says when you go and meet the prisoners, you know, they never ask you what you do. They want to know, in Afrikaans we say like wie's Bethany. So who's Bethany? Like I don't care about what you do. I want to know, who are you? Like, who am I talking to right now?
Wow.
Who am I engaging to, and who am I about to listen to? And so coming from a place where in prison your status doesn't mean anything. There's no, what you do as a job has no relevance. They've learned like, I want to get to know you, and that's what's important. But we don't have that culture. We are a society that's immediate gratification society and built on status, which has produced an identity by what you do,
yeah,
or what degrees you carry. So it's not so much that we like to stay busy because we are in such a rat race rush, but sometimes we stay busy because that's where I get my validation. That's where that's where, like, if I'm not doing anything, if I'm just still, like, we're addicted to the feeling of being validated.
Yes.
The feeling. So it's not productivity we're addicted to, it's feeling productive. Meantime, it's a false narrative of what you're feeling, because most of the time you're not productive. You're 8 hours behind a desk. I've been a boss, so I've had employees. I know the 8 hours that they're spending there sitting at their desk, they're not busy the whole time they are there. You're busy filling space.
Yeah.
So we move from filling space to creating space, because we're filling space for someone else, or just to feel like, okay, I did my 9-hour work day. Good, I can go home and now I can just chill. But it was really unproductive. Yeah. So it's what we buy into a lie with it anyways. It's not the fullness. So there's power in being still and in that reflection time, that living in the margin, where we stop and look back like, wait a second, what I'm doing, am I really being productive? Is my busy empowering me or somebody else? Am I making a difference? Am I making an impact? Or am I literally just filling time? And time is so valuable on earth. We only have so much of it given to us. So what are you doing with it?
I love what you said about, we're addicted to the feeling of being productive, because that's where the dopamine hit comes in. And that's where our brains get addicted. It's because of the validation and the reward. The dopamine is the reward. And so just like people, we get on Facebook and we pay attention to how many likes we have, or on Instagram, how many likes we have, or followers or whatever, like that's a dopamine hit, and it's the same. with productivity, and the validation piece I think is really key. Yeah, and all of that. So, but the good news is there are practical things that we can do to create space in our lives and to create that in any area where we need space. So I was going to just share a couple of those. Just I think they would be helpful for people. Some of this we've already talked about, but the first one is calendar it. Like literally, if you are a person who's to calendar things, put it on a calendar. Like put it on a calendar to say like this moment, this time, I'm doing nothing. Like leave it open, like block it out. I mean, you just showed our mutual twinsy calendars earlier. I want to make sure on there you have a calendar spot. There's nothing on there, JJ. Yeah, that's part of something we can do. And, you know, I used to work for a mission agency that they sort of required once a month that you would take a half a day of just like Sabbath and time away. So you would like calendar it. You would say, okay, this is, and you would be held accountable for that. Like, when did you do your half day? Or you could either do a half day every month, or you could do a whole day. And it was like a paid work day. So obviously not everyone's in that situation, and we're not necessarily talking about it in that regard. But that is a principle. That's the principle of Sabbath, which is biblical and has been through time, is this idea of like God, the creator, the great I am, he also rests and rested. And so if Jesus rested, so if they rested, how much more do we need to actually rest? And that's a whole nother topic for another time, the principle of Sabbath. But I think with putting it on a calendar, again, we've talked about this a little bit, but I use this kind of idea of that, of like, let's say you go to a brand new city for the first time. So let's use Paris, because I love Paris. I've lived in Paris for a while, and it's one of my favorite places. But let's say we're going to go to Paris, and we've never been to Paris. I may say, okay, I definitely want to go see the Eiffel Tower. And I definitely want to go to the Louvre, and I definitely want to go to like Notre Dame. Okay. So, but I have 3 or 4 days in Paris. I'm going to intentionally make those things a priority. I'm going to sort of plan, maybe not the exact moment, but I'm going to work my schedule so that those priority places are my focus and where I'm going to go. But the rest of the time, I'm going to leave open to see kind of what unfolds. And for me personally, as a global traveler, you as well, I don't know how you operate in this space. Well, I do a little bit because we spent some time together traveling. But it's this idea of like, I like to just explore what's to come and the things that I couldn't map out and plan out. So whether that's a divine conversation you have someone with a coffee shop. I mean, this happened to us countless times in South Africa together. Literally also in coffee shops. You know exactly what I'm talking about probably. But that idea of like, again, it goes back to that margin. So put the things you prioritize on a calendar, but then leave room for the open and for the unknown and the unexpected. You know, when you are planning things in your sort of work life, they always tell you to plan for something to take 3 times as long as you actually think it will take, which is also a sense of margin, because things often take longer. So it's that kind of same idea of like plan and then leave open space. So that's one of the things. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Then you said about plan to what do you say?
Plan to be spontaneous.
Plan to be spontaneous.
So I plan what I need to plan, and then the rest of my space, I'm open to be spontaneous. I mean, that's a personality thing, but maybe that's something practical you can take out of that as well. The other thing is that if you have to learn to say no, which I'm leaving a little silent because like a lot of us don't know how to say no. So the reality is when you say no to something, well, the reality is when you say yes to something, it requires you to say no to something else.
Yeah.
But when you say no to something, it empowers another yes somewhere else. And I'll just give a really specific example of this. This is a really ridiculous example that just came to mind. Growing up, I was a cheerleader from the time I was literally in like 5th grade all the way through my junior year of high school. I was on the same squad with the same girls many years. Like it was definitely part of my identity. But in my latter years of high school, I realized that I needed to nurture the creative gifts in my life that weren't like all my other friends. Like I was a little bit different in that way. Like I was an artist and I liked music and I thought maybe I could sing, but I wasn't really sure. And I went to try out for my senior year for high school, which is like a big deal to be, you know, your senior year of high school, to be on the cheerleading squad your senior year, you know. And again, I'd been a cheerleader my whole life. And I remember feeling really torn about trying out for cheerleader because I didn't actually think I wanted it, but I didn't know what else to do because it was so a part of my identity.
Yeah.
So right before I went into the tryout room where you had to go in, you had to do a tumbling pass, a jump, you had to do a cheer and a dance. I stood at the door and I just prayed and I was like, God, if you don't want me to do this for my senior year, like do something, make a way, like help me. Because I knew, honestly, if I tried out, I was going to make cheerleader. Because I just was, I just was like at that level and I'd done it so long. It was just kind of like I was a shoe-in kind of thing. So I opened the door to walk onto the mat to try out. And no lie, my mind goes completely blank.
What?
Like completely blank. And I was the very first person to audition, by the way. And you go in groups of 3. And I looked at one of my good friends who had also been on my cheerleading squad for years. She was right behind me. She was going to be the next one to go. And I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And she was like, what do you mean? Like, do a tumbling pass. All I know is my mind was blank. I was so overcome with joy in that moment. I like looked like a total fool for the rest of the tryout because I didn't care because I knew I wasn't going to make cheerleader. And I knew that no was going to open up wide open spaces for something else. That year, I was the lead in the musical. I did all this AP artwork. Like it just opened doors for me to do other things. And I was able to see it in that way at the moment and also in the aftermath. But the no to that thing became a huge yes to a lot of other things, which are things that I'm still doing in my life today.
That's awesome. Yeah, when one door closes, another one opens. Sometimes we have to close the door.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So the last thing I would say is about creating space is learning to stop. We already talked about this a little bit, the idea of being still. But stopping, even for you, if that looks like going outside for 10 minutes and not taking your phone and not like literally just like going outside. Like I'm in Texas right now. I could go outside and like literally just look at the tree or listen for birds. We have cicadas right now in Texas, which is like a kind of deep summer. It's like, they're so loud. But go outside and just observe and just listen. And like really with no agenda other than to just be present and be in the moment.
I have to say this. My most productive, like honest, productive, real productive space is in my stillness, is in my quiet. When I'm busy, my busyness is a distraction. And I do it to myself sometimes because a lot of times we stay busy because we don't want to feel something. We don't want to deal with some issues or whatever. And that's a different story. But a lot of times we just make life busy. When my mom passed away in 2012, I kept myself busy to the point where I was burning candles at all ends. And I did that because I was so scared to feel what was really happening, what was really going on in my life in that moment. And because I wouldn't stop to feel it, I couldn't deal with it. And so I always say you have to feel to heal. And but we don't like to feel. We aren't, as society, we aren't taught to think for ourselves. That's why we're so media fed, because it's like we're not even going to give you time to think. We are trained to live in our trauma, so we can't heal. We don't grieve. We don't process. We don't analyze. We don't think through what we're going through or the decisions that we make. We're impulsive. We're immediate gratification. I said that earlier. And so like society's out there, their agenda is to like dumb us down, where you are so busy distracted, you miss out on the innate power that you carry. And that power is the place of your imagination. And your imagination is tapped into when you can be still. So scripture even says that God has given us the ability to create wealth. That ability is found in your place of dreaming, in your place, in your thoughts, in your imagination, in ideas. So when I'm still, like, I have my hands in a few different pots and whatever, and I had a few different businesses, and people look at me and they're like, JJ, you're all over the place. And all of it is dreams and ideas that I get, and then I just play them out. And literally my ideas are creating wealth for me. But I would never have found the place of entrepreneurship and birthing ideas if I didn't stop for a second, step out into my margin and be like,
Yeah.
wait a second, what am I doing for literally 10 hours a day in corporate America, working for a salary to make a boss proud, trying to collect the accolades? Like, wait, what am I doing? What am I doing? And I stopped for a second, and when it like dawned on me, I was like, you know what? I got to step out. And then I'm all along the way, and I start to get busy, and I see that nature of society coming back in me, and now I'm on the go, and I'm exhausted, and I can't think, and even you and I have talked about it. And all of a sudden, I have to be like, stop, think, reanalyze, and then let's go again.
Yeah.
But that's the creating space of just, and we don't rest from our labor. Like, if you're resting because you're tired, then whatever you're doing that's exhausting you, you're out of alignment already. If you feel like you have to rest or take vacation from the life you're living, get a revelation. Like, there's so much more. We should be resting for what we're about to enter into, what you're about to pursue. Like, so you rest to say, I want to stop because I need space where I can just bring everything, center everything that I am, because I know I'm about to embark on a brand new race, and I'm about to go in a new direction of purpose and new design of what I'm creating and stuff. But most of us are needing a vacation to recover from the life we're living. That's so sad.
Yeah. That's
Real.
You know, it's, you say, what is it that you say about resting? You're resting from, not resting for, or is that, am I saying that right?
No, you rest for your labor, not
Yes.
from your labor.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting you brought up imagination. So in my work as a spiritual director, that is the number one tool that I would say that I use with people. Because think about it, as children, this also comes from me I'm wired as a creative anyway, and I see the power of creativity, but the dreaming space is space that we all need. It doesn't matter what you do, what your job is, how you're wired. We all need that dreaming, imaginative space. And we grew up in society being told, dream, you can be anything you want to be, blah, blah, blah. And then at some point there was this like sneaky transition into like, don't be a daydreamer and and like sort of like a rebuke against all of that. But scientifically, what happens in your brain when you are using imagination is that your brain doesn't know what's real physically and what's not. So when you imagine things, the power of that, and this is a lot of the things about, when people talk about manifestation, which is a whole different topic, but manifestation is actually a biblical principle in the sense of that we have the mind of Christ. And it's his word that creates power. And anyway, that's a whole side note. But with imagination in that regard, what happens is your brain thinks what you're imagining is real. So again, I use that in my work a lot. Part of what I do is I help people really connect with God in sort of open space. I hold them accountable together by meeting with me in a certain locked in time to just help them kind of navigate a space with God. And so that all comes back to that, but maybe that's another conversation we can have another time, is like the power of imagination in the work that you do as a life coach and in the work that I do as a spiritual director and a coach as well. So I don't know if I just wanted to share, we've really focused on practical things that can work in any area of our lives, but as someone who does really intentionally help people create space with God, there are certain things that you can do. I want to read one of my favorite quotes about this regard it's by Henry Nouwen. And it says, in the spiritual life, discipline means to create that space in which something can happen that you hadn't planned or counted on. Like, JJ, that's like that quote is literally like what we've been talking about living a life that is intentionally unintentional. And I just want to say, we're not going to go into all the details of this now. But when it comes to creating space with God, I do have a resource on my website. It's a free download. If anybody's interested, you can go to my website. I'll put it in the comments. It's thehopeadventure.com. And you can download the resource. And it's a pathway that helps you just walk through, okay, what would it look like to create a rhythm of space to connect with God? And it's got some really practical, I think it's like 4 steps of things that you can do in your daily practice with God. So I'll put it right here.
Awesome.
Did you have any other comments? Anything you wanted to add?
I love the thing about discipline, because actually Ulrika and I, when we were doing 21-day fix or whatever with Beachbody, I think it is, we were doing the ab workout, and she says something in there that like literally revolutionized, but how discipline in your life, having a disciplined life, is a life that creates room for other things to happen. Sometimes we think discipline blocks off time, takes up time for us, because now I've got to be here at this certain time and do this and whatever. But sometimes living a disciplined life creates space. And
that's true.
It's controversial, or it doesn't make sense in it's a paradox.
Well, it's hard to swallow. I think it's hard to swallow and you know this because I did coaching with you, and that was one of my struggles at the beginning, is like seeing discipline as a tool for freedom and not like something that would make me feel more claustrophobic. Yeah. Awesome. Well, we didn't want to go as long today as we did last time, so we will wrap up there. But again, if you're joining us, this is your first time, we're going to be doing these conversations. JJ is a life coach. I'm a spiritual director and life coach. And we just have these conversations organically offline anyway. So we just decided, you know what, why don't we just put them out there on our Instagram, just in hopes that it can help other people. And if you have any interest in connecting with either of us, reach out. But yeah, or if you have any topics that you're like, hey, what are your thoughts on this? Like, let us know, and we'll talk about maybe having a conversation. Yeah, is there anything else that you want to say about that? And we talked about maybe doing another one next Tuesday. I'm not sure if we locked that one in or not.
Yeah, I think we can, and we can talk about the excuses versus truths.
Ooh, give it a teaser for that.
I think
it's too real. It's too real for me right now.
Where we are more prone to come up with an excuse than we are to tell the truth, but how it's damaging, especially because excuses become lies, and when we use them, we're not being true to ourselves, and that's dangerous, because we start to we create the pathway we're about to walk into by whatever words we release. So our excuse actually becomes what we walk into, instead of just being open and honest and truthful, which is scary but powerful.
And this is the teaser I'll give you, because I think it relates to all of us, and we won't go in depth because we'll talk about this next time we jump on a live. But JJ and I were talking about this the other day, and she goes, you know, it's like when you're driving somewhere and you know you're going to be 40 minutes late, but you tell the person, I'll be there in 30 minutes. Like, that's such a small thing, but I know I've done that. You just like slightly tweak the information just to make it sound less than what it's going to be, even though you know you're going to be there 40 minutes late. Anyway, so that's also part of kind of the realm of what we're talking about. But thanks for joining.
That's why we do it.
What'd you say?
Self-preservation. That's why we do it.
Ooh, okay. So that's a teaser for the next conversation. Yeah, thanks for joining us, and hopefully this was helpful today. Let us know. Share with your friends if it was helpful, and we look forward to seeing you again next time on our live.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.